Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Friday, the 14th of March. It's the morning after a quite sensational night before at Ibrox. And to discuss the big talking points as Rangers progress to the quarter-finals of the Europa League, I'm joined by a full team. First of all, Chris Jack. How goes it, Chris?
Weary, but apart from that, all good, all good.
Yeah, I feel weary. I wasn't even at the game, and I feel like I've gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. Jonny McFarlane also joins us, who was at Ibrox. There was a few fans worried that you were going because I don't know if you've got the best of records at Ibrox, but we came through it unscathed. How's it going, Jonny?
Good. A bit tired like Chris. I think I got about 5 hours sleep last night. You can never really get to bed quickly after the adrenaline of a game like that. So, but delighted to talk about it, and a fantastic result in the end to get through. And that's what counts, I suppose. Yeah,
it's all about getting through. Of course, it wasn't. It was squeaky bum time. Let's be honest. But Rangers have made it through, and they will play Athletic Bilbao in that last 8. Doesn't get any tougher, but it's a game we can very much look forward to. Before we delve into it, just a quick word from our sponsor. The Rangers Review now brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV to date. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs, so start your search today. And I'd imagine we'll be inundated with comments today. Remember, if you want to put your comment to myself, Jonny and Chris, make sure you are a subscriber, folks. So only subscribers can get your points in. And remember, it is totally free. It won't cost you a bean. Right, as I touched on, Rangers going through into the last 8 of the Europa League, an outstanding achievement. I was on last night for the post-match. I think Barry Ferguson and the coaching staff deserve an enormous amount of credit, as do the players, for coming through a really tricky tie against a team, let's be honest, as Josie quite rightly said, they are better on paper, but that doesn't always win you football matches. And Fenerbahce winning the game over 90 minutes by 2-0. Then went to extra time and two teams sort of tiring in the end. And we went to penalties, which Rangers came out on top. I thought it was quite funny to hear from James Tavernier saying that they never even practiced penalties this week. Barry Ferguson just let the players decide who's going to take them. And kudos, first of all, to Jack Butland for 2 magnificent stops, and to James Tavernier, Václav Černý, and Tom Lawrence for stepping up and converting their penalty kicks. Yanis Hadji, of course, missing his, but who cares, because the boy at the end blasted his over the bar and into Govan, which meant that Rangers progressed. Chris, you were there, as was Jonny and Joshua. It was quite the atmosphere, certainly on TV. It looked like Ibrox was bouncing, but it was a real nervy game. It was one of those ones we spoke on videos prior to the game, after last week, saying how will Rangers approach this? Should they go gung-ho? Should they just set up as they did that got them success last week? They're sort of caught in 2 minds, I think, and Fenerbahce pounced on that. But what did you make of the game?
I think it didn't quite work in terms of the approach last night. I think we spoke pre-match in the press room on the show, and we agreed that it was the right team that Barry picked. We agreed with the way that he set them up, and thought this is the way, given how impressive it was last week, this was the best way for Rangers to go and win the game. They didn't really have any real control of the game. Over the 2 legs, not overly impressed with Fenerbahce, it has to be said. They've got some good players, got some who are perhaps living off past reputations. Wasn't overly impressed with them, and I think if they had progressed, they are not going to be touted as one of the favourites to go on and win this competition. I think they're stronger sides than them. But from a Rangers perspective, it was a game that they could easily have won last night, and that's having not played that well. You look at the chances. Černý being the main culprit. I lost track of how many chances he had. There was moments where he didn't shoot. There's one. Neil McCann was going absolutely ballistic on the touchline. Černý got himself into a really good position, just didn't get the shot away. He had one later on the night, he burst through and just couldn't quite get away. That you have to say he put in a power of work last night. He was absolutely dead on his feet. How he even managed to walk from halfway to the penalty spot and then convert his penalty and then get back again. Fair play to him for being able to put in that shift. But he was the main threat. Dessers never really got into it. Rangers didn't really carry enough of a threat, didn't have any real threat at set pieces. Jonny was the one, and when he didn't take the first couple of chances, he feared that the goal wasn't going to come for Rangers. Fenerbahce obviously made the most of their chances. I think it felt like a night that it deserved to go the distance. No one really deserved to win it in 90 minutes or 120. You then go down to the penalties, and Rangers, they obviously do what they had to do. Sore one for Yanis Hadji to miss his spot kick, but Jack Butland steps up two really impressive saves. The rest of the penalties really clinical from Rangers, and as you mentioned, that last one hits Edmondson House, and Ibrox then comes into a real scene of celebration, jubilation, and it evoked memories of all those wonderful nights on the road to Seville, and that's what people are now waking up this morning dreaming of.
Yeah,
Derek, I want to throw in a hand grenade, pal, because I disagree with you and Chris's assessment of the game.
Right, give us your hot take, Jonny.
Well, I think Rangers played really, really well for the first 45 minutes, but unfortunately were undone by a freak goal.
Yeah.
First of all, Kostic breaking down the left, his cross is nearly blocked, and the nearly block is what deflects the ball up and over the head of James Tavernier. And lands on, I can't remember the player, it's the Polish player, isn't it?
Szymanski, is it?
Szymanski, that's the one. And it's a world-class finish. There's just no other way to describe it. It's an incredible finish. So you're talking a really, really low XG chance that he's converted sublimely. And that deflection was what changed that moment. If that deflection hadn't come in, Rangers deal with it. And I thought they controlled the game up to that point. So I don't think there was anything wrong with the game plan. Where I have concerns or where I would have criticism would be, I thought the second half, Rangers were really, really, really poor. Dreadful, in fact. And that's when I thought Fenerbahce, with their tails up psychologically, having scored that goal from nothing with 30 or 40 seconds to go in that first half, they really had the impetus, and Rangers started the second half poorly. And I thought for about, 35 minutes, Fenerbahce just dominated the game. Rangers came into it towards the end a little bit, started creating a few more chances. I think the game went a bit basketball-like. But that's my assessment. I felt like the control was there for Rangers. Don't think Fenerbahce had a shot on target. I think that was their first, the goal. So...
yeah, the first two goals, I think, were the first two shots they had on target.
Yeah, the second goal is just really poor defending, and Tavernier, who I thought was phenomenal, really a captain's performance. Will know himself, he should have cleared that. Don't think Butland was absolutely brilliant on that shot either, and definitely could have done more from the defensive point of view down the left flank with Jeffy, who is probably the primary culprit for that one, to be honest. Jeffy just can't defend, and we talked about this yesterday morning, Derek, when I said I would play Ridvan, I would play Jeffy over Ridvan because of what he gives you in the wing-back position, but he just gets exposed every time. And that's something he needs to have slapped out of him. There's just no other way to describe it. They need to get around him and really, really go to town on his flaws, because he needs to learn fast if he wants to get to a level where he can be the footballer that his skill set suggests he's going to be. He's going to have to find a way to rough out smooth out those edges, because they're pretty rough. But overall, the most important thing is, Derek, you summed it up. They've got a better team. They've got better players. They spend far more money on wages. They spend far more money on transfer fees. I think Mourinho spent £40 million in the summer. So this is a real boon result, and it was always going to be difficult. I didn't speak to one Rangers fan or one journalist going into the game who thought it was going to be a scoosh and that Rangers would easily qualify. Jose Mourinho, despite some people sort of suggesting that his best days are behind him, I thought it was a bit of a masterclass in that second half, the way he handled it, some of the gamesmanship, some of the sort of game savvy that he displayed, I thought was carried the hallmarks of a great manager. So to get past him, for Barry to have pulled that off, and many, are not convinced by Barry and weren't convinced, because of his records, and Barry talked about it in the post-match. I remain one of those people. I still don't think Barry should be in the running for Rangers permanent manager. I don't think he can appoint someone without a decent amount of experience at the top level. But I think there's no doubt in my mind that Barry's carried himself really, really well with the media, and I think really well in 3 out of the 4 games that he's managed so far. He didn't panic last night, and even though things weren't going well and the stadium was turning a little bit, they got there in the end. And boy, oh boy, did that Rangers end make a difference last night. There's been a lot of chat about having the Union Bears in the Copeland rather than the Broomloan, and is it working? Is it as good? I've heard stuff in the pipeline about is that going to remain? You know, there's a lot of people unhappy. It's not quite been a synergy there. But I thought last night shows you the power of having a Rangers end. We've seen it over the years with Liverpool and other clubs where there's just an extra added drama. And I really do think the crowd almost won that penalty shootout. It was, Chris can maybe talk about it as well, just being there. It was a bit different than seeing it on TV, I would imagine, Derek. I watched it back last night when I got in, and it didn't really capture what those Fenerbahce players were walking into. It was a wall of noise like nothing I've ever heard at Ibrox. I've been at games that were louder. I've been at games that had better atmospheres over the course of the games, but I've never heard anything in my 30-odd years of going to the stadium that's ever matched that for sheer decibel level. Those penalties, it was the whole stadium was shaking, and to have those players from Fenerbahce step up and to have all those flags and everyone jumping around and going mad, it must have been such a distraction. And personally, I think that told when you look at the way they approached the penalty kicks. So if we're talking about a 12th man, that really was a 12th man last night.
Yeah, Nolan says Ibrox kicked in on the penalties. At Ibrox, you need to win the crowd. The prospect of success makes it. So, it certainly looked like that on the TV, that it was good that they took the penalties down at that end. I think Rangers must have won the toss, because I can't imagine Fenerbahce would have agreed to that. That's for sure. Just on Fenerbahce, I think it was a bit of a just sort of complete different outlook to last week. Rangers were clinical on the break. Fenerbahce looked, well, they missed chances themselves, of course, but I think, as William says, Fred made a massive difference. He certainly did. Thought he was running the show at times, and Rangers were struggling to get near him. I think Tom Lawrence coming on settled things down for Rangers in that midfield area. And as I touched on earlier, when he stepped up to take that penalty, well done to him as well. He's been someone that is... it's fair to say that we don't see him sticking around at Ibrox long term, but he stood up and he took that penalty really well indeed. You get a lot of people agreeing with you, Jonny, some not so much as well. But that is all part of the show.
John J, that's the way it is.
That is certainly the way it is. Chris, with a point here on, you mentioned there the dark arts. He says they were cheating, diving scumbags, Jonny. Everything everyone hates in the game. And
that's what I want to see from my team. I want to see I want to be a horrible team to play against, and I mean that's why I've always admired Josie. Would I want to go and watch it every single week? Well, if it's a winning team, of course. Yeah,
but I tell you what, that diving, John Souttar getting a yellow card, and Mohamed Diomande, Chris, getting a booking for a clear dive. They will now miss the first leg of that game against Athletic Club Bilbao. They'll be a big miss, won't they?
They will be. I've not actually seen those incidents back yet, but I saw a lot of social media comment last night and this morning regarding those particular incidents. And I think they can both feel hard done by. They are going to be a big miss. I thought Souttar played really well last night. A real kind of backs to the wall performance at times. The couple of last ditch challenges, throwing his body in front of things, getting his head on things. He just had, it was a real kind of proper backs to the wall defensive performance, as I thought he played. I thought he played really well alongside James Tavernier, who Jonny said. I thought Tav was really impressive as well. Again, a couple of terrific blocks and terrific challenges. Balogun played well, but was clearly like Cherney, clearly burst long before the end of the night, but managed to get through it. So no, Souttar will definitely be a miss. Diomande will definitely be a miss, because he gives you something in these games, the ability to take the ball in tighter spaces, the ability to be that cool and calm and composed on the ball. You need someone like that in your midfield in occasions like this. We know Athletic are going to be a step up from Fenerbahce. It's with everything that's on the line for them this season, or the final being in their home stadium. You don't need any bigger motivation than that. So it's going to be a huge challenge for Rangers, one of the biggest that they've faced in European competition over the recent years. But you can never write this Rangers side off, and even being a couple of players down, you can never say never, because these occasions, these nights, they just bring out the best in this club and these players, and the support, as Jonny touched on there. And you can head into these next two fixtures looking forward to them immensely, and you just go and give it your best shot and see what the outcome is.
Yep, lots of comments coming about the referee. Donna says the referee was card happy last night. He certainly was. It was yellow carding everybody, it appeared. And as I touched on there, the two Rangers players getting booked. Buckshot with the point says, are yellows white now, or are some players still walking a tightrope for the second leg? Ridiculous rule, by the way. It is ridiculous. They should have all been white after the group stage. But they carry forward. And I'm not too sure when they do get white. I don't know if you boys know when the yellows get white and who is on walking that proverbial tightrope, but there will be a good number of players walking it.
Yeah, I think they get white to the semi-final stage, Derek, so that you're not going to miss the final.
Right, okay.
From something like that. But I'd need to clarify that. Obviously, it changes with every different competition. Yeah.
But not ideal whatsoever. Lots of comments coming in, as you can imagine. Chris touched on Czerny, Jonny. He was a man on a mission last night. That was one of my bugbears, as Chris touched on. Failure to release the pass when it was required, taking too long in the ball. I'm not just talking about Czerny. Hamza Igeman was getting infuriated by him. A great player, but his awareness needs to develop a little bit. He needs to understand when it's best to pop the ball off quickly to a better option, as opposed to just keeping hold of it. And Czerny was often the option last night, but Rangers more often than not refusing to take it. It was absolutely shattered at the end of the game. Of course, it was that instant on the at half-time of extra time when he was getting a massage on the old hamstrings and Danilo was stripped. In fact, the announcement had come from the PA that he was coming on, only for Czerny to say he was okay to continue, and he did continue for the last 15 minutes or so. Willie Boy with a point says, morning, gentlemen. I have to say hats off to Czerny. Thought he was outstanding, really ran himself into the ground, looked like our only threat. What do you make of Czerny last night, Jonny?
I thought he should have come off, Derek, if I'm being honest. And I thought the point that they did try to take him off was the point to take him off, because he didn't really offer much in that extra time period, apart from the moment where the keeper does make a terrific save when he cuts inside and pings one from about 20 yards. The keeper makes a great save. He's always dangerous, even when he was completely spent. When he had the ball at his feet, he was dangerous, but he just run himself into the ground. And at that point, I think he would have been better off with Danilo on there. That said, he's a penalty kick taker. He took his penalty really well, so you wouldn't change it now. I just think with Igeman, who to me is a more of an interesting one, there's just signs that he's... I've got to be careful. I want to be careful how I put this, guys, because I think he's an enormous talent. He's a young guy. He's just come into Scotland. This is his first really, truly big club where there's expectation, there's pressure, there's scrutiny, and that all takes time to adjust to. But I think it's his decision-making, really, that was infuriating last night. And this is an aspect I think I've seen creeping into his play. It's almost like he's trying too hard because he knows he's had a spell without a goal. And I think that, again, it's a case of the coaching staff need to get around him and need to pin him down on some of the decisions he's making, because there was times when he could have bled the ball off, or there was an easy pass and he's trying to go past the player again, being too greedy, not connecting play. One of the things I felt from watching Dessers in the first half was that Rangers needed to make the change because it just wasn't really happening for him. And I thought, Igeman, get him on, you'll hold the ball up better. But he really didn't. It was a nothing display. And that was really, really frustrating because you know the talent he's got there.
Yeah, Chipperuni says, thought the whole team was slow on the ball last night. Yeah, there's a few people criticising Nadeem Bayrami as well. Billy says, can we discuss Bayrami? OMG. Not the best. I think many Rangers fans have made their minds up on Nadeem Bayrami, Chris. It doesn't do it for me. I want to see more from him, given that the outlay for him, he just doesn't produce enough for me to justify that, and I can't. I think he's a decent player. Just think he's in the wrong movie.
If Josh was on the show this morning and be able to confirm my my unhappiness with Bayrami's performance last night, I think I made more points to him about Bayrami over his performance than any other player on the pitch. I think I've been fairly clear on him over the course of the season. For me, he's not got it. He's not good enough. When you look at what Rangers put into him in terms of the fee, the importance of that number 10 role, when you think back to last summer and we had the Todd Cantwell drama situation, it was so evident and obvious that Rangers had to find a proper solution in that number 10 role. Bayrami was the man that they picked. He's not the man that's going to be the answer to that problem. I think if they can get anything back for him, now that's not to say you take 200 grand for him, but I think they have to try and get as much back for him as they can in the summer. I think you just have to cut your losses. You thank him for his efforts and you move him on. He's not the only one in that particular group, but for me, he's not good enough. I don't think he offers enough. And if there had been another fit option to go in there ahead of him last night, I don't think he would have got the game time. Interest to see now. Also, we touched on Diomande being out. What does Barry do for the next one? Do you ask Tom Lawrence to come in and fulfil that role? Do you ask Bayrami to fulfil that role, or do you give it to Bailey Rice? That's a big call that Barry's going to have.
Yanis, maybe.
He's also got a couple of weeks to think about it. But say for me, I think Bayrami's Rangers career, it started well, had some moments, and it's gone downhill fairly steadily. So for me, he's not someone that the club should be banking on heading into next season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'd imagine Rangers will stick with the same formation for Athletic Bilbao, and I think that the one that will come in for John Souttar would probably be Robin Proper, barring any sort of injury. So, yeah, interestingly, on Athletic Bilbao and the challenge awaiting Rangers, this is what Jose Mourinho had to say about it in his post-match press conference.
Well, I think it's possible. But I played against Bilbao in the group phase. Bilbao is a stronger team. And the final is in Bilbao. The road to Bilbao. I don't know what happened today with Roma. I just know that after 10 minutes, Roma was playing with 10 men. So honestly, I think if Rangers does it against Bilbao, would be phenomenal. Because it's going to be very hard.
It would be phenomenal, Johnny. I think he's bang on there, Jose. He's alluding as well to that game with Roma last night. Mats Hummels sent off after 11 minutes. I thought it was harsh, I've got to say. Seeing it, I know Hummels came out afterwards and apologised to the Roma fans who are not best pleased. But Bilbao winning by 3-1 on the night to progress on aggregate. What do you make of the challenge that awaits Rangers?
Well, I don't watch a lot of Spanish football, so I can't pretend I'm an expert on Bilbao, but I did watch the Euros and watched it quite closely. And I have to say, Nico Williams looked like a player and a half. And to think that he's going up against Jeffrey, this was the talk of the press room last night before the press conference. You know, that is going to be a real challenge for everyone at the club. Inaki Williams is a right good finisher as well. We know him over the years. He's always performed terrifically for Bilbao. And they are a very, very good side. They're fourth in La Liga. In my lifetime, Rangers have traditionally not done well against Spanish opposition. from very early on. I think the first time I saw Rangers play against the Spanish team was against Valencia. I remember opening up a paper the day before and having them described as the Aberdeen of Spain, which
ridiculous,
right? You know, Michael Malls, Ronald de Boer, all those. Actually, de Boer wasn't there yet. Michael Malls, Amoruso, Barry Ferguson, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst against the Aberdeen of Spain, no problem. And of course, this was the Hector Cooper Valencia that went on to the final, I think 2 years in a row. Yeah. So that was the start of the Spanish pain. And let's not even talk about Seville. I know it wasn't a Spanish team, but Spanish soil and all that. But you know, Barcelona, 1972. So there's always plus points to look back on as well.
Yeah. Betis, of course, the most recent game against Spanish opposition, but Bilbao are certainly a step up from whatever team.
About Betis. Completely forgot about Betis.
How could you forget?
Like 5 minutes ago. Good Lord.
But yeah, listen, there's a point that's been raised here by Brian. He says that we're in a no-lose situation now. The pressure is on Bilbao, which will suit Rangers, Chris. Rangers will be big underdogs in both legs, I would imagine. And as we know, that they do better when that is the case.
They do, but I don't think you can underestimate the challenges ahead of them. Just as Jonny's got outlined there, Rangers will be huge underdogs for this one. I think as much as there was a jubilation last night, he spoke to a number of guys after the game. I think the realisation quickly hit of just what's ahead. Barry was asked about it a couple of times, when obviously said like it's not even thought about it. That's obviously still too far down the line. They do have a couple of weeks to prepare for it, but it's going to take a huge performance from Rangers to get a result. It's going to be higher than anything they produced, better than the Spurs game, better than Man United, better than what they produced against Fenerbahce. Because as Mourinho kind of alluded to there, it's just everything that's added into this tie. I mentioned earlier on what a motivation that is for Athletic to get to a European final in their own stadium. So it's going to be a huge challenge for Rangers, but it's one they can look forward to. No one expected them to get to this stage. They've done so well to qualify and get out of the group stage. They've done remarkably well to get through this tie. It's a free hit if you're to go out at the quarter-final stage to a side who do look like they could go on and be potential winners of this competition. There'd be no shame in that at all. But Thursdays can be special days. So hopefully Rangers have got another 2 left in them just yet.
Yeah, they're in amongst the esteemed company. The last day of the Europa League, it's no mean feat whatsoever. Teams in Scotland really shouldn't be reaching these stages of European competition, especially Europa League Champions League. But Rangers consistently, Jonny, season after season, seem to outperform in Europe. I've never seen this in my lifetime. It used to be Rangers going out before Christmas, even before the schools went back in the day, of course, in the late 90s. But this sustained period of success is quite incredible, really, considering the domestic drought, shall we say. It really is quite staggering.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. As you say, in the 90s, when Rangers were an absolute behemoth domestically and winning everything in sight, European football was often a troubling spectacle, often disturbing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I remember so many European nights being underwhelming, to say the least, even when Rangers had some world-class players. And I don't use that lightly, but Paul Gascoigne and Brian Laudrup were world-class. Yeah. So it wasn't like there wasn't talent in the team. But I think fundamentally back in those days, there was kind of the inverse problem. Rangers were set up for domestic success and they couldn't play the same way in Europe, so they had to change it and they weren't as well trained. And I think it's the same now. I think, look, this Rangers team and the Rangers team since the Steven Gerrard era have been built almost as a kind of mid-block European-style side, and they don't quite get over the line domestically most of the time. But European-wise, you can see the success that they've had. It speaks for itself. As you say, this is not something that we've seen in a sustained manner like this. But Rangers have just been absolutely terrific on European nights. Ibrox is a massive, massive part of that. But I think the style of play is at the core of it, is at the heart of it, and is something that is going to need to change going forward, I think, because Rangers will not get the domestic success that they need, that is so important, unless the team is built first and foremost for the bread and butter of Scotland. And it may be that Barry can bring a bit of that between now and the end of the season. No one knows what's required in Scotland more than Barry Ferguson. He's a treble-winning former captain. He's steeped in the club. He knows all about it. But I suspect that it's deeper than who the manager is. I think it's a part of the way that the squad's been built. It's part of the way, the type of players that they've got in. And I think part of that will be in the summer when the new regime comes in, how they spend that money and the type of players they look to bring in to fit whatever head coach is then taking Rangers on into the future.
Yep, lots of comments coming in. Let's get to a few of them. Just on Rangers losing to substandard, shall we say, European teams back in the day that they should have been beaten. Overland and Border says, still have nightmares about Grasshopper Zurich. Yeah, Kubilai Turkomaz.
Well, he was a good player though, right enough. I mean,
he was decent, but yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember Rangers lost 3-0 over there, on recollection. Robert Burns says, I saw Kempes tear us apart for Valencia around 1980. Yeah, what a player he was back in the day. Just a point here on the Ibrox record. Derek H. and a few others, Chris, bringing this up. Still lost 4 home games in a row, 2 under Barry, worrying. I think that's a record in the history overall. Rangers have never lost 4 matches at Ibrox before. How big a concern is that? Again, last night's match is a bit unique in the fact that you could afford to lose the game. It's all about getting through in the end. But yeah, that is a record that you do not want to continue.
It's another unwanted record for a group of players that have not exactly covered themselves in glory over the course of this season, and it's the real kind of juxtaposition in this Rangers season and in this Rangers squad. They're not very good, but they're in the quarter-finals of European competition, and it's just been one of those really bizarre campaigns. Domestically, so far off it. Manager rightly sacked. Huge questions over a number of these players going forward. Supporters looking for another big rebuild over the course of the summer, but they find themselves just a couple of games away now from taking their place in Ibrox folklore, and that's the motivating factor for them now. If they want to go out on a high, that's what they have to try and strive for. But if they're going to do that, the Ibrox record clearly has to improve. They're not going to qualify for the last 4 and not going to get to a final if they don't win their Ibrox games. The games at Ibrox are going to be huge for them now. Certainly the next one coming up, they have to give themselves the best chance possible in this tie. I think the emotion, obviously, of last night kind of supersedes everything. The result supersedes everything. But that record is not good. The previous 3 games at Ibrox were dreadful, and it was better last night. But still, also another defeat, still another unwanted piece of history. So it has to be addressed. They do have a couple of games, obviously trying to play themselves back into a bit of form, hopefully, heading into that next tie. And we've got through 33 minutes and not even mentioned the C word or the words old and firm yet. So again, that sums up where this Rangers side are. You're going into an old firm game that's a dead rubber, means absolutely nothing. But now they've got such a wonderful chance ahead of them. So it's a very hard squad and team to actually sum up.
Yeah, got bigger fish to fry. If you're a fan heading to the game, take the beach balls, all that sort of stuff, because Rangers are in European football in April, and the team that they're playing on Sunday are not. So, although I've seen that there's a lot of netting around the away supporters, and by all accounts, I think you need to make your way over to that Emirates Arena in about half an hour to make your way to the ground, given that they're escorting the fans up to the stadium in very early before kickoff. Just a couple of points on personnel heading into that game. World's greatest DJ says, should we be wrapping the players in cotton wool between Sunday and the quarter-final? Yes, and I imagine they will be today, because there's a lot of energy exerted last night. Vladdy says, any news on Barron's injury? And Sterling Minot taken off last night due to cramp. That was the reason why he was removed. But yeah, there's a few walking wounded last night, Jonny.
Yeah, there certainly was. And no one can doubt the amount of effort and application that the players put in last night. There's some players that didn't play particularly well. Some players played great. Some players were middle of the road. But I think every single one of them, maybe with the exception of Barami, really left everything out on the field. So you've got to think, unfortunately, that that's going to have some sort of impact on the game on Sunday, because I think there will be players that possibly don't make it. I think there'll be players that are, for example, let's just talk about Czerny. Can you imagine Czerny lasting 90 minutes after that performance? He just looked utterly spent at the end of that game. And listen, a couple of days rest will do him the world of good, and I'm sure he'll be able to play, but it looked like he left everything on the field. And it would be silly not to be balanced and fair and say that it won't have any effect. Celtic are motivated. They are upset about the loss at Ibrox, not just the loss, but the manner of the loss. So there is a motivation for them to come out and give it their all. And then I think they've had a much easier week than Rangers. Let's put it that way. So those two factors, I think, will make it challenging. You add the fact it's at Parkhead, always a stronghold for Celtic, always a difficult place for Rangers to go. Traditionally, results of a positive nature are fairly few and far between, and that's understood because it's a really, really challenging place to go. So I think there needs to be a bit of realism. If I'm Barry Ferguson, I'm going into that press conference today and I'm really, really laying that on thick. And I'm trying to get the message out there that, we're knackered and, we'll do our best and, try and provoke in Celtic a little bit of...
Well, they'd have watched the game last night. They've been fully aware of the energy levels that have been exerted in that game. There
could be one message for the public and one message internally. And perhaps that message for the public can be aimed at Celtic's players as opposed to the Rangers players, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that's all part of management. It'll be interesting to see how Barry approaches that.
Yeah, and for to you say Barry Clive Czerny's back at full time. I think he'll be okay on Sunday. Press conference today, folks. 3 p.m. We should hear from Barry Ferguson slightly earlier for whatever player is put up for the press.
Barry spoke for 11 minutes, much to Chris's chagrin last night at 11:15. I don't know what we're going to ask him in this presser. Chris, are you going? What are you going to? Have you got a question, or are you?
No, Josh is heading up. I'm on morning briefing duty, as everybody knows. I've got a Jack Butland interview that's will be on the site at 12, and Josh is heading up to the presser because I've got a night out later on, so he's going to go to the presser. I'm off to the RYDC dinner tonight, hosted by Heart and Hands on Davy Edgar. The speakers are Ian Durant and Kevin Thompson, so I'm sure everyone will be in there. Fine fettle and good spirits for that later on. So Josh is doing the favour of heading up to the training ground so I can do what I have to do and then get the glad rags on and head out there later on.
Fantastic.
Right, well, it's been a bumper show. How do you see it going on Sunday, Chris? I can see it being similar to Istanbul last week. I think Rangers playing that sort of defensive structure, trying to hit on the break. Celtic, as we all know, usually come out all guns blazing in these games. Are you making many personnel changes, freshening up? I'd probably be bringing on Danilo, maybe starting Danilo in the game. Just try to think who else could come in. Ridvan possibly at left back. Not too sure who else.
I think a line in the sand needs to be drawn with JFD. I talked earlier about getting in and about him on the training ground. I also think he needs to be dropped. I think they need to.
He's played a lot of games, Jonny, hasn't he?
Yeah, put down a marker. Ridvan's there. He came on. I thought he was excellent when he came on. Really good performance. Didn't put a foot wrong, really. And therefore, he claims the jersey. JFD makes too many big game mistakes, and you need to get that out of him somehow.
Agreed. I don't mind. I mean, there's a lot of... He has played left wing before, but haven't really seen that at Rangers. I wonder if that's an option. Ridvan at left back, stick Shefty further up the park, see if that makes a difference. Although his distribution is not the best either, isn't it? Maybe a spell out the team might be the best thing for him. But Hadji perhaps could come back in. What would be your team for Sunday, Chris? Just off the top of your head, do you think how many changes do you reckon?
I'm assuming Josh will ask us for a team to go on the website later on. I might wait and see what Barry says when he's on his press conference. I think he touched on it last night. He's waiting to see who walks through the doors of the training ground first thing this morning and seeing what kind of nick they're in. It would be a monumental effort if he was able to field that same side. Like Jonny mentioned Tierney earlier on. If he's able to start, great. If he can get through 90 minutes, then it would be a remarkable effort from him. So I think we need to wait and see who's fit. I think the Ridvan must be in contention to come in. Yanis Hadji must be in contention to come in. Danilo, I think, given how off it Dessers and Emmanuel last night, I think Danilo he may feel that he's owed a game after his frustrations last night. So the problem, the squad's not that great. There's not a lot of options in certain areas. You don't really want to be dipping into your Ross McCausland type. You don't really want to be dipping into having to start Tom Lawrence because he's failed in these games so often. So I think you really just need to wait and see who's fit, see what work you can do on them over the course of the next couple of days. I don't think they were doing too much on the training ground today and tomorrow, put it that way. So we'll see what Barry provides in terms of an update later on. But it's an Old Firm game. It's at Parkhead. It means everything and nothing all at the same time for Rangers. So I think the Barry factor is a big one for Rangers. He's spoken a lot the last couple of weeks about standards and mentality and making these players aware just what it means to represent this club and to play big games and to win big games. I'm sure he'll be tired as well, and he'll have been through the emotional roller coaster as he phrased it last night. Come kick off on Sunday, he'll be ready and raring to go, and he'll demand the exact same from his players. So I think Rangers do have it in them to go and get a result enough to win the game. Potentially not, but who knows? As we've touched on over the last 40 minutes or so, it's a very inconsistent Rangers side, and sometimes you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yep. I can see a sort of Hugo Ekihog type game at Parkhead. Let's hope I am right. But that game on Sunday, folks. So a couple of days of recovery and then heading into that one. But we'll wrap up there for now. Big thank you to Jonny and to Chris. As Chris mentioned, Joshua in attendance at the training centre for us to speak to Barry and the players. So we'll bring you what is said as soon as we get it. But thanks again for tuning in. It's much appreciated. And if we don't speak to you later, then enjoy your Friday. Bye for now.